What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Criterion Corner. This is the segment on my channel where I pick a film from the Criterion collection or that's currently streaming on the Criterion channel and talk about it in great detail. And I was really excited because recently it was announced that there was going to be a trilogy of films from director Gregg Araki released in the Criterion collection, and they have them currently streaming on the Criterion channel. And I'm a huge fan of Gregg's work. I've only seen two of his movies, Mysterious Skin and Smiley Face, but I've loved both movies for very different reasons. Mysterious Skin being a film about a horrible tragedy happening to two young kids and how they grapple with that tragedy, and Smiley Face being a ridiculous, over-the-top comedy with a fantastic performance from Anna Faris that is just like absurd, dumb, silly fun. And because I loved both of those movies, I've been really excited to check out more of his work. And this is a film from Gregg that I hear a lot of people talk about and that people say is one of their favorites that he's made. And so knowing that going into this movie, I had very, very high expectations. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is Nowhere. Nowhere is directed by Gregg Araki. Described as 90210 on acid, the film tells the story of a day in the lives of a group of high school kids in Los Angeles and the strange lives that they lead. So I was very excited to watch this movie because of the amount of things that I've heard about it previously. And I liked it, but I did not love it. I don't think this is anywhere near as masterful as Mysterious Skin. It's a little uneven. I feel like it has Gregg Araki's normal sense of weird absurdity to accompany like the themes that he's going for in the movie. But I think that because of the minimal characterization in this film and how these characters feel more like caricatures of human beings and less of like authentic real people, that a lot of like the very like guttural, visceral emotionality that he's trying to pull from you as a viewer is difficult to achieve when the characters don't feel humanized. They feel like a joke. And there are moments that I think that it works better than others, but I felt like compared to Mysterious Skin, where those characters are very fleshed out and they feel like real people, that in this, when you're spending so much time satirizing these people in LA and kind of making them look like dumb airheads, that like when you try to provide genuine emotionality in moments, it ends up feeling kind of hollow. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I break the movie down. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Dark, played by James Duval, who is a young high school kid that is seemingly kind of miserable in his life and his day-to-day. He enjoys elements of his existence, but he's also kind of just like, I want to do life the way that I want to do it, and is your typical teenager in one of these movies. And we're introduced to the large friend group that he spends time with, in particular his girlfriend Mel, played by Rachel True, who they're kind of like on again, off again. She's not willing to commit to a relationship because she likes to see other people. Montgomery, played by Nathan Bexton, who Dark has a fixation on and is seemingly very interested in. And then you have all these other characters like Cozy, Lucifer, Egg, Dingbat, like all of these wild character names. And the introduction is really great. It's really funny. And the entirety of the film is just examining all of these different characters and their specific situations and trying to examine a number of things thematically in just viewing the lives of these high school kids. So as I said, I liked this movie, but I think it's incredibly flawed. I will say for positives, the performances here are fantastic. Like these actors really like laying into these very on the nose stereotypes of LA kids, especially in the 90s. This movie feels very, very 90s, not only aesthetically, but in like the clothing choices and the way that these kids talk to each other. And I think they all do a really nice job with the satire of these people and like playing into the overtly goofy stereotypes that are often attributed to people from this area, even in like their vocal inflection. I really like James Duval in this movie. I thought he was fantastic, and he really nails it in the way that he delivers his dialogue. And you can tell they're all having a really good time in this movie portraying these characters. Aesthetically, I love the way this movie is shot. It's a little rough around the edges, but it plays with color in a way that's really unique. It gets into a lot of moments of fantastical realism that are relatively absurd when it comes to like these random creatures coming into the frame. The third act like breaks reality in a way I wasn't expecting. The very last sequence of this movie will be etched into my brain for quite some time. And I like that Gregg Araki doesn't feel the need to be stuck in reality. He's willing to kind of like break into the absurd, which is what makes him such a special director. Like he seemingly abandons the normal narrative conventions of filmmaking in every movie that he makes, and this is no exception. I also really love the musical choices in this. It obviously accompanies that 90s mood and tone really well. And the beginning of this film was honestly my favorite. I feel like the way that they were able to do a lot of the satire mixed in with some of the more real world elements, it worked really well and it was balanced. The issue I have with this movie is the further you move along, when you get to about the halfway point of the movie, it starts to tackle some very heavy subject matter, sexual assault in particular. There are also moments of like struggling with queer identity and like how you're perceived as a queer person, even in an area like LA where it's always been traditionally more accepting than other parts of the country. Greg is trying to examine these very hard hitting, depressing ideas. Drug abuse is also a very heavy part of this movie. But because these characters feel like caricatures of people and less like real human beings, it's hard for me at least to feel an authentic sense of connection for any of them because of how goofy they are early in the movie. It's like it never once feels like it's very grounded in reality. And there's a couple of sequences, especially with the character who's dealing with drug abuse, that it doesn't come across as very real emotionally. Like it feels almost funny, and I don't think that's what he's going for. And obviously, this is a movie that's early in Gregg's career, and I feel like with something like Mysterious Skin, or I've heard a lot of positive things about the Doom generation and some of his other movies, that he's able to play into the absurd but also pull back and have moments of genuine emotional authenticity. That this movie, because he wants so much absurdity included, that trying to balance that absurdity with the real emotionality, it clashes. It doesn't feel like it's seamlessly intertwined. I also felt like for an hour and a half movie, it was a little bloated. There were moments I found myself a lot more disinterested than I have in his other films, which is unfortunate because Mysterious Skin, I feel like, does not waste a single second, and I was just totally glued on the screen. Smiley Face is obviously just an absurd, ridiculous comedy that I was along the ride for the entire way. But this movie, it was like I would be invested and then I would be pulled out and I would be pushed back in and I would be pulled out, to where at the very end, despite having a really amazing sequence that was hard hitting visually, and I feel like what it was trying to say was very important, that stuck with me. But a lot of the other elements of the movie were relatively forgettable, and that's unfortunate because, like I said, I think Gregg is a really talented director, and I can't wait to watch more of his movies. But this is my least favorite film from him I've watched so far. And I think this movie will really click with you if you can appreciate it aesthetically and if you enjoy the satire. I think there are parts of this movie you'll really like. But if you don't enjoy the satire of like this 90s look at LA, you're going to find the movie pretty miserable to watch, to be honest. And I think that it's all about your approach to it and what you get out of the movie. And like I said, I enjoyed elements of it and I find it to be well made. I don't know if this is a movie I'd be rushing to revisit anytime in the future. So have you seen Nowhere? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was really well made and I enjoyed elements of it, but it's definitely very flawed. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.